and welcome to the weekly recap show. Thank you guys for standing by, or if you're watching this in the future, hello, and please give me some sports results that I can bet on. Anyway, let's go. We just wrapped up. We just wrapped up our final day of the regular season and our Super Week. The playoffs are now set. Before we get into everything, just want to ask you guys just brief personal reflection on the season so far, starting with you, William.
I actually had pretty high hopes coming in just because I thought there were a lot of teams had high potential. Just curious how much they would grow. I think pretty much all the teams delivered more than I would have hoped for, so this was a great first season of VCT Pacific.
How about you, Quack? Obviously one of the newer additions coming over here to join us in Korea. How was this for you?
Sure, I mean, it's great to work with everyone here. Let's start with that. But at the same time, for the teams, I have to agree with Will. Likewise, I think so much potential. It's fun to watch how these teams have grown across all 8 weeks. I mean, 9 weeks, actually.
Well, we'll go ahead and take a look at how that growth did go as we look at the standings here now set in place with our top 6 secured, getting ready to do battle starting on Friday, where the playoffs will kick off. DRX, PaperX, T1, Zeta Division, Team Secret, and Gen.g are 6 teams that have clinched their positions.
You know, now looking at this kind of as a big picture, now that I'm looking at it, it's like, oddly, it kind of makes sense to what people would have expected at the very beginning of the season.
Sure.
Maybe the order, not so much, but DRX, PaperX, obviously. And then, Gen.g, Zeta Division, I think a lot of people would expect it. And then Team Secret, T1, always in contention.
I think the one thing that might have flipped there was obviously Talon,
Yes.
who came into this season with really high expectations, but couldn't quite deliver on it until about the midway point, and then unfortunately weren't able to make their way into that top 6.
Very much so for all of those, but I would also have liked to see, some of the newer additions to this entire league. RRQ, Global Esports, they almost made it, but not quite there. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, I mean, you guys are right. This is kind of what most of the fans would have expected, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't stray too far from the path. Obviously, some ups and downs there as far as, maps taken off of some top teams, as well as, even DRX suffering that loss just a couple days ago. But, maybe somewhat anticipated, but in a slightly different order. We do, however, want to reflect back on the entire season so far with some nice little awards and see who was top ranked in some different positions. So this is going to be our league awards here, the regular season at least, and then maybe we'll do this again for the playoffs. You never know. We do have one more recap show after this one, so we'll get ready to jump into that and see where people are going to rank. We're going to look at things like the most kills, the most assists, the most first kills and whatnot. So we should be able to fly that on your screens in just a moment and see where the people are going to rank.
Yeah, I mean, this should be interesting. It's always nice to have kind of a look back. And it looks like we're just starting with kind of representative stuff. And Dev continuing to hold most kills and most first kills. Wow.
He was way out in front. Actually had a really good differential the last time that I had looked at his stats.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, like a week and a half ago. So he was still able to maintain it, even with Saya player putting up such a strong performance and finding an immense amount of first kills, because he, I believe, is still in second place.
I could have sworn that I thought it was Foxy now with the most first kills, but this guy must have taken over, especially, like you were mentioning, in that match against T1. It's just Zeta, they played that many rounds, and they played that many rounds sometimes because depth keeps them alive. Meanwhile, on the other side, Gen.g God did with 234 assists. That's a pretty big number.
And we were talking about this before the weekly recap. Godded was one of the most consistent players on Gen.g, and the part that surprised me most is that he's actually really playing as a team now. In the past, on some of his former rosters, he was kind of this guy who would pop off, have really high peaks, but also really low valleys. And this time, if you're putting up the most assists, you're doing your job on that team.
Yeah, really, really good stuff there from Godded, and even in their dips has still been looking good and has been, let's say maybe even overperforming compared to the rest of the team. So you got to assume that about 100-something of those assists, probably all just from Meteor in their first couple matches where they were able to get those 4 wins, because they were that dynamic duo that were crushing.
Yeah.
But in addition to those stats, I think that this is not going to come as a shock as we go ahead and put up the most aces that we have had here in Pacific League. It's, of course, it's Monyet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We had Monyet Monday yesterday. He wasn't quite able to get an ace to make this 4, but we saw him get pretty damn close.
It was really, really close. I mean, he always has those highlight moments, highlight clips, and I think a few of these aces were gotten because of shotguns. He's one of the most strongest controllers, I think, that we have. Of course, Mako being on top, but coming into Pacific League, just starting things off, I think unless you really follow the APAC or Southeast Asian scene, you might not really have heard of him, but he showed up. And something that we now have this term coined for Monyet Monday, and it happens in a lot of these clips that we're watching right now.
Also happens a lot on Split.
Yes, obviously some strong showings on Split, even against the likes of DRX. But I like that you pointed that out, Quack. I mean, this was one of those players that people who followed the sub-regions, right, of APAC or SEA were cheering for. They were waiting to see him on this big stage. They were hoping that he could prove himself, and boy, did he do it. I mean, now he's got fans globally clamoring to see him in more matches, see what he can grow into. And the fact that he used to be, a duelist, now he's a controller, and anytime he can still pop back on that duelist, as we've seen, he's proven himself very well on this stage.
Yeah, did get that brief look at him on Raze, and it was a very explosive performance. So maybe there's going to be some more of that in the future, because obviously Global Esports are going to be competing in the LCQ later on in the year, after we wrap things up at Masters Tokyo and whatnot. So still a chance to see even more of that from Monyet, but well, let's just see more of Monyet right now, because we're going to take a look at the single, the top kills in a single map here from the season, and this was a new LAN record set here by Monyet.
Yeah, 39 kills, and big surprise on Split. Of course, it did go to several overtimes, but this was that map, against CRX, where he was just farming on that Aster, controlling so much of that B site and mid, all at the same time.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Does this top the previous holder of this record was it Xfero on
Xfero?
Yep.
Yeah,
it tops it.
Indonesian counterpart, and he kind of really earned this spot. The fact that he was able to pop off, challenged. I think they were the first team to challenge DRX that far past their limits into overtime.
Yeah, I mean, this was across 32 rounds because this map ends up going 17-15 in DRX's favor, but he's still able to put up those numbers in a loss and average well over a single kill per round. It was just such a nasty performance. We knew it was coming. Once he had gone around 30, we were like, he might be going for the record because it doesn't look like this game was going to end, and then he was able to breach it. So Monyet, hell of a season. Same for just Global Esports overall. Couldn't make it into the top 6, but they continue to show that, this experiment, this multinational roster could work out and could put up strong performances. So more power to Monyet there. So we'll see what happens in the LCQ. Maybe he's going to have some more aces up his sleeve for us. But I think our last award that we have to give out here, and this is going to be one that we get to select. This is not back on statistics. This is going to be, well, it's all about opinion, because we didn't select these walkouts, but we're going to be judging the best walkouts and reactions from the players as they enter onto the stage. So I believe that we've got our first person is going to be Cruz, obviously from Talon.
He's had some good ones.
Didn't show us too much flair here today. He was in serious, in serious mode, wanting to take down DFM, but
come on.
It was a bit different versus Secret.
I just want to say, he did a dance video with Forsaken at some K-pop dance studio.
And he nailed that.
That was awesome. And could you imagine if they actually do make it to champions? Cruz, Boaster, Forsaken all dancing together. That would be fun.
People want to see that.
VCT boy band.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he also just kind of goes all in on it. He's prepping, different dances every time, just making sure that he can enjoy the stage. And this was when they were really trying to find their groove as well, and I think that's when we started to see the return of the talent that we wanted to see.
Yeah, it actually is strange, because you could basically directly correlate the goofy walkouts from Talon to them finding success.
Yes.
It was right when they started showing a little bit more personality, that former self that we had come to expect from them, all the way back in the X10 days, with Patty, this initial gorilla-esque leap out onto the stage. That's when we started seeing Talon start to pop and really become contentious here in Pacific. Now our second nomination, or nominee I should say, is going to be Eco from Gen.g. Take a look at some of his walkouts again.
Well, he's had a couple silly ones, I'd say. Now, I always wonder, was that planned, or at what point does the act end and reality hit? You just can't tell with this guy.
This point is where reality hits.
This one was absolutely goated.
Yeah, this was pretty good.
The backwards walkout.
The fact that Garnett's is wait, what is going on here?
Oh my God, this guy's trolling.
If only he had walked out alongside Cruz. It would be a combination so volatile. We would just create a new element.
Yeah, it would just explode on stage, right?
Yeah, that would create a black hole.
Yeah, full on itself, buddy.
The Hadron Collider, be damned, it's those two together on stage. That would have done it. Well, our next nominee is going to be Foxy9 from DRX here, and obviously his debut season in VCT. Let's see what he had for us.
I remember a couple ones. All right, the first one.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. I think that's what impressed me the most is there's the dab. I think he does a kind of a kung fu, maybe a Lee Sin homage here. Is that it? No, this is him just pointing to his name. Oh, and
Pat
Pat just follows him. But the thing that I enjoyed about his walkouts is that, again, this is his debut season, at the top level of VCT here at Pacific. And he's enjoying himself, right? He knows how to enjoy the stage. He knows how to enjoy the crowds. Here it is. Yeah.
That's what he said when he denied Takajay.
Yeah.
And
Takajay's like, what? How could you?
Honestly, I think Takajay's reaction might end up winning this, even though he's not nominated, because that was a great reaction.
You're right.
We should really choose
I'll
one.
keep that in my mind.
All right, well, we'll go ahead, and he's now nominated for another award. It's going to be God once more with some of his walkouts, but I think we kind of know what to anticipate from these.
Oh.
As,
it can only be one thing.
It's going to be the tissue.
I mean, he was streaming. He was
All the
watch
toilet
party.
paper, shoves it up the nose.
And of course, the tissue buff not coming in strong towards the later part of the season, but
I want like one day where he comes out like, a toilet paper mummy or something like that.
oh, just entirely mummified.
I think he should have signed it and chucked it into the audience.
That could be fun.
Well, he has another chance.
That's true.
During playoffs,
Yeah.
he has
Earn
another
it.
chance.
Do it.
DRX bailed him out. It is possible.
I'd also like to throw it out there. Honorable mention, coach walkouts. We had Coach Ewok and Global Esports Eraser hugging each other. I think that was pretty fun.
We also had Ewok trying to stretch and stand up next to Elma Putty.
Oh,
They were playing against
yes,
Gen.g as
yes.
well, so some good
I think they
personality
stared down
shown.
Alex today too. We love RQ.
Yeah, just good personalities the whole way across
gotta
from those
choose.
guys. But speaking of playoffs, let's get into predictions for the playoffs. Because
serious
obviously
though.
the bracket is now set. We have the top teams after the match earlier, PaperX taking the win, bringing Gen.g back into the fold. Now it's time for us to get down and dirty and try to figure out who is going to be moving forward, who's going to be winning each and every matchup throughout this playoffs run.
Jeez. All right. Well,
Let's fly the bracket.
yeah, let's take a look at the bracket first, just so we make sure we're not making any mistakes here. But I am curious, right? I mean, obviously we've got DRX and PaperX who are waiting, with the buys in the first round. And I think a lot of people would expect no matter who came up, most likely those two will at least move on to the upper bracket finals. Obviously, we'll take a look at the bracket again to really get down to the nitty-gritty. But, I mean, we didn't even know what the the order would look like until the last couple days of Super Week. So this is going to be a tough one to call.
It is. I mean, there's so much that could change around. And just right off the bat, something that we're thinking of, Gen.g getting this playoff spot just because PaperX beat RQ, they kind of have to earn their spot right here. They had a great showing at the start, but what happened in the recent weeks,
It's what Forsaken said. We've bailed you out. We've gotten you back in. Don't ruin this. It's like convincing your group of friends, like, no, that guy's cool. It's okay. Like, just let him hang out with us.
Yeah.
And
Give him
then
another
it's
chance.
like, don't you mess this up for me.
That's
I
esports,
stuck my
baby.
neck out for you. So don't act like a jackass in front of my friends anymore.
Yeah.
We'll see how they fare and whether or not they will in fact be able to earn that respect back from PaperX. So here is the bracket. It's kind of far away from us, but my eyes are working well enough to see it. So off the rip, we've got Zeta Division versus Team Secret. Let's just start right there. Winner's going to move on to play DRX. What are we thinking? Who's going to be able to win this one?
Oh, this is a tough one. I will say first of all, basing recency bias, I think the form of Team Secret in Super Week definitely looks stronger. Not to say that Zeta looked weak, but I think the evolution of Team Secret definitely has a bit of an edge. And quite frankly, I always feel like Zeta just only really shows their true form when their backs are up against the wall.
I have to agree with you. I'm going to be with Will on this one because Team Secret truly has evolved in recent weeks. They beat DRX. I mean, you could call that DRX were saving strats, whatever, but they also really adapted to global esports plays like on the fly. Zeta Division, they are a team that can go really aggressive, but sometimes that form isn't there until there's that pressure involved. So, I have to agree with Will. I think Team Secret takes the first one.
Okay.
All right. Okay, we're agreed with that.
We got that. That's already a majority, so we'll go ahead and slot Secret forward. So it will be a rematch of Secret versus DRX to see whether or not they're going to be able to take them down a second time. And now I believe we'll move down into match number 2. T1 versus Gen.g, the El Clasico of Korean esports.
Yeah, actually. Crazy how this happens everywhere.
Yeah. But
It could have
T1
been
get
RQ.
it done this time?
Right, that's the big thing. And we even had that kind of know your enemy video with the Korean teams, and T1 Zeta talks, he's talking to King and he's like, well, I think we can be honest and say both of us probably thought we would win that first match in the round robin, right? And King's kind of just laughing it off like, well, I don't know. I thought we were going to win no matter what. But now we look at what T1's capable of, and it's like, yeah, if a rematch happens, especially in the current trend of T1 going up and Gen.g going down, I mean, I think the stats absolutely say T1's favored in this.
I really wanted to come into this playing devil's advocate, but I have to go with Will because if you think about it, Saya player recent form versus Meteor recent form.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good
T1
one.
takes the cake.
That's a good one. Saya's been so hot in the recent matches.
He has. And T1 was also very much playing alongside their LCK squad. It felt like whenever they were winning, the T1 Valorant team was winning.
Okay.
And T1 did just recently take down Gen.G over to MSI. So maybe this will happen here. Obviously, it's going to be a couple weeks separated, but it could happen. But just statistically, I have to agree. So T1, we think that they're going to be able to take down Gen.G and send them down into the lower bracket. Now, we get into the next matches. Again, a rematch. DRX versus Secret. Can Secret do it twice in a row?
I'll let you take this first. Let's hear it. Can Secret do it twice in a row, Quack?
Yeah, let's go Lavan Piñas because I think Team Secret, they have that chance. Although, you know, it's tough to say what DRX has up their sleeves. We know they're cooking something. We know they've always banned Lotus. Maybe this finally gets played and then they just wash over everyone.
All right.
But
all right, voice of reason coming in here. First of all, Lotus is not going to be unbanned because they're not going to let it go until a best of 5. That's just how DRX plays in these tournaments.
I agree.
And DRX also not a team to lose twice, right? No matter what the reason was the first time, as great as Secret looks, I just don't think DRX is going to accept that as a reality. They'll do whatever it takes to move on. DRX moves on.
I have to agree, and I also think that DRX, if they anticipate that Secret's going to be able to win, they have that extra little bit of prep time, whereas Secret has to get ready for Zeta Division, so that takes away from it.
I'll keep huffing my hopium. You guys go ahead.
So we're going to go with DRX getting seeded forward into that upper bracket final. Now, PaperX versus T1. PaperX utterly demolished T1 the first time they fought, and right now it feels like it might be able to happen again, but what do you think?
I mean, I think especially looking at their match against RRQ, I think absolutely. I think everything is lining up right now for PaperX to really evolve into version 3.0.
PaperX, enough said.
Okay, well, there you have it.
All right.
Even if I wanted to go for T1, we're going to go with PaperX. Now, we turn our sights down to the lower bracket, so this is going to be the first team eliminated, and it's going to be Gen.G versus Secret. How do we feel about this?
Oh, God.
I think Secret has. Here's the thing. Secret's been improving, right? And we talk about momentum and all that. They've been learning, and I think they're kind of not only finding their mechanics again, but also they're starting to learn to really anti-strat well. I think that's the thing that they've been kind of missing in the very beginning. And so with that said, I mean, Gen.G, I think they're going to be so busy trying to shore up their weaknesses that I think Team Secret comes in better prepared for this.
You know, I just realized something. I'm going to make this quick. You got the two guys who are like at the bottom of the predictions so far with casters. And we're making this call, but I have to agree with Will. I do think Team Secret has this one in the bag.
All right, well, we'll see. But how do you anti-strat the team that has no
No
strats?
Yeah, I
I'm just
know.
kidding. But we'll see what Gen.G can get ready for those matches, for their first match, I should say.
Okay.
But now, Zeta Division versus T1.
Backs up against the wall. Enough said. I mean, listen. I'm a huge believer of the current T1, right, and what they're cooking. But Zeta, there's something, and we're starting to see glimpses of last year's Masters Reykjavik.
Okay.
All right.
I want to set that.
Listen. I fully believe in T1, but like, you can't deny the fairy tale and the anime story all combined in one.
You got the power
How
of
can you
anime
beat
on your side. I
Is
want
that
to hear
enough to
from
convince
Achilles.
you? Do you believe in fairy tales? Do you believe in anime storylines?
Yes, but I want to hear if you have anything to say for T1.
I think that this could be a really close one because
Yes.
Saya
saw
Player
it.
and Depp have been neck and neck as far as
couple
first kills,
days
as
ago.
far as
Yes.
their overall kills and performances have gone. They're two of the highest rated players generally, not just within the duelists. So I think that the battle is very much going to hinge on them. But if Zeta do have that miraculous performance, if they do all show up at the same time, I think that they could take them down because T1, they have had 3 players playing really, really well, and then maybe 1 or 2 not so much, rather than all 5 at the same time. So
Zeta.
I guess we're going with Zeta. So
Move
we're going to
Zeta
say
over.
that Zeta stay alive, they
Masters
move forward.
Tokyo.
And now we'll go back up to the top, DRX versus PaperX.
You guys know what my answer
I think it's
is.
DRX.
All right. Well, yeah, we're all just gonna vote our obvious answer, which is DRX, PaperX. So
Okay.
2-1 DRX.
All right, DRX wins. Moving on. So DRX first team into the grand final. PaperX is going to be sent down to the lower the lower bracket, the lower final.
And then the lower bracket round 2.
Yeah.
This is a tough
Secret
one.
Zeta.
Secret
How
Zeta.
far does the anime plotline take you?
Okay, so now returning, now that I've kind of, really lived in that fairy tale world a little bit. I don't know. I mean, this Secret, I mean, I know even like a lot of Secret fans were like, oh, the casters just like keep on doubting us, but like Secret, they know how to grow. And I am convinced, because here's the thing, coming into Pacific, they learned to calm things down. And then they kind of struggled a bit, and then the anti-stratting started coming in. So clearly, the chemistry between the roster of mechanical players and the coach of Warbirds is starting to come together. With this many more matches, I think they could take down Zeta Division.
Will sounds really convincing in all of this, but I'm going to have to go the opposite way. Because I think it's some of these moments you can have, that's a missing ingredient that Team Secret was missing all along, right? That anti-stratting, and then it finally came in towards the end of league play. Zeta could very well do the same thing right here in the lower bracket. Lower bracket run, Masters Tokyo, let's go. Right, guys? Right?
I mean, it's doable. It's doable. You know what? I'll just add one more thing, though, is that while Dep's been very impressive, something that caught my eye is, again, Jeremy's starting to really slot into that role of the main duelist, and also willing to pick up the operator whenever he needed to. You know, a lot of people hearkening back to when he used to play a lot of Chamber as well. So if Jeremy was kind of, out of the two rookies, Envy looked strong from the get-go. Jeremy had a little up and down because of also the role swaps he was having here and there. If he's also able to come online, and then it's Borgum time, right? And then Dub steps on Jet, I mean, you know, Secret, I think, has a good recipe here. It's tough, though.
Is that enough for me to convince me? I think it might be.
It is tough. You know, in the current bracket we have, I think that might be the toughest match to call.
All right, I think we'll roll with that narrative, though. You put up a really strong argument, so we'll go with the rematch. The rematch of PRX versus Secret. Secret cared so much about this one during the regular season. They were able to get the win. It was hard fought, a 2-1, but that was before the changes. That was before something. That was before PaperX became this monster, this beast of a team that we've been seeing over the last couple weeks. How do we feel this time around?
I mean, can you counter-strat against something and Jing combined? We just saw that against RQ. We saw, and we were kind of contemplating it, like picking Reyna all of a sudden in a freaking bind map. They still just held that W key down, and RQ, despite the setups, couldn't really do it. Can Team Secret do it? I don't think so. I don't think you can do it a second time. Lightning doesn't strike the same spot twice.
I'm inclined to agree. I think that PaperX should be able to take this one.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a combination of PaperX coming with a vengeance and, yeah.
We just assume at the end of it all, that our top two teams are going to remain in the top two and that they will be battling out. But what this does mean is that Secret would go to Tokyo.
Yeah, which is something that obviously that team and the fan base would want incredibly. And that's one of the teams that we always said, well, they have a chance to go to Masters Tokyo, but we don't really know until we've seen the round robin. Now we've seen it. Clearly, we see a bit more of that possibility.
Now, all right. Well, let's go ahead and just zoom in onto the schedule a little bit more so we can refocus and take a look at the playoff schedule as it does get ready to kick off this Friday in just a few days. Off the rip, Zeta, Team Secret, then T1 versus Gen.g. DRX and PaperX obviously going to be waiting with bated breath to find out who their opponents are going to be the next day, but they do have that extra little buffer. But obviously, you know, we go from one gauntlet into the other, the Super Week, now into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Unless you're making it up into that top three, you're not really going to have any reprieve, any respite whatsoever unless you can get there and have that slight little week break.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? At this point, for all 6 of these teams, it is an endurance battle, right? You're just constantly going match to match, learning new comps, learning new metas, trying to counter strat against your next opponents, which you might find out the day of or the night before. So I think it's going to be interesting, and the evolution of all the teams, it's going to be a really exciting playoffs.
I mean, you just can't miss any of it. That's Esports, baby. That's VCT. You know what I'm talking about? Zeta, Team Secret, T1 Gen.g. It's just such a tough matchup, and we were just talking about it during the predictions. You have to mark this on your calendars. What more is there to say?
Yeah, we as casters and the viewers watching alike have been confused and befuddled by some of the results that we've seen here this season, and that is very likely to continue as we go into the playoffs. We'll see whether or not, we'll have to revisit this and see whether or not our playoff bracket ended up being correct. It probably won't. It probably won't be anywhere close, but that's all for fun. But that's going to do it from us here. We're running a little bit late, so we're going to go ahead, take some rest, get ready for the playoffs, and we will see you guys then. So like we said, mark your calendars, set your alarms, make sure you've got snacks and everything on standby because you do not want to miss any of the action. We look forward to seeing you guys on Friday.